Hi, I'm Everett Abrams, the Wizard of Wood, and today we're going to have a little conversation about bleach. And the reason we're having that conversation is because it's probably one of the most controversial topics when it comes to exterior wood restoration. Should we use bleach? Should we not use bleach? Is bleach good for the wood? Is it not good for the wood? And so forth. And while I have other videos and so forth out there, I like to do a nice podcast episode here in detail about bleach, because we want to try to get through some of the beyond the surface, let's put it that way, of what bleach can do. Is it good for what we're doing in exterior wood restoration? And just basically, we get through a lot of questions come in asking whether bleach is good, should we use it, I was told it's not, so forth and so on. But bleach has been around a long time and it's cheap, so a lot of people use it, both contractors and homeowners alike. So let's kind of get right into it first. And when I say that, we'll talk what is bleach? Bleach is sodium hypochlorite, often referred to as sodium hypochlorite. Most of the time we're going to deal with two different grades. Now there's different percentages, but basically we break it down into household bleach and then commercial bleach. Some people will call it pool bleach. Basically you're looking at that 5.5% on a household bleach, and you're looking for something 15%, whatever, it could be 10%, 12.5%, whatever it is, regarding pool bleach or commercial grade bleach. So what happens is household bleach, according to Forest Products Laboratory, a recommendation for a wood cleaner was using household bleach. Now a lot of contractors use commercial bleach, so they'd have to adjust their dilution rate to make it not harmful to the wood and make it easier to actually rinse it off. We don't want to leave bleach in the wood if we're using bleach. What I'm going to really get into is not going to sit here and say don't use bleach or you can only use bleach, which a lot of people will take those stances. Bleach is a tool and it's in our arsenal, so it's something that we can use when needed. It's just really a matter of when is it needed, number one. Number two, I always believe, and I've already said this in other episode, was good, better, and best methods. So you have a good, you have a better, and you have a best method. Bleach would probably be more along the lines of a good method, not a better or best in a lot of cases. But let's talk about bleach specifically, what its ability to do is and how it works. Bleach actually reacts with the first contact. So if you're in wood restoration and you have a heavy buildup of mold, mildew, algae, and organic growth, and you apply bleach to the surface, it's going to hit the growth and it's done. It reacts with the growth and it's done. It never really gets to the wood. So what happens is in the areas where you have high organic growth, it doesn't get to the wood, and then where there's not as much growth, it gets to the wood, and when it dries you have a blotchy look where it looks like some was done and some was not done. Now if you have light growth, bleach is probably going to get to it. But if you have a buildup or it's been neglected for a few years or a heavy growth, it's probably not going to do a good job, and you'll probably end up having to do it twice. And when you do it twice, that's kind of where I get into this back and forth with a contractor a lot of times, because a contractor will say, oh, bleach is fine, I've used it for 100 years, blah, 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 being facetious. But that it always works, yada, yada. Okay, well, that's great. But if you have to do it twice and you're using it because it's cheaper than some of the other products that are out there, or use of other chemicals that are more expensive, then what happens is if you have to do it twice, you really defeated the purpose of being cheaper, because if you do it twice, time is money and you've spent extra time and labor into the job. That's number one. Number two, if you were to take bleach and apply it to the wood surfaces a couple times, you're probably going to lighten the wood up more than it should, and probably won't be as bright. And it'll be harder to rinse out as well too. So there's a lot of reasons not to do it in that situation. But the other part of this is, and this is what people don't really grasp when they're just reading, a sentence or two online or on some recommendation or somebody's, YouTube video or whatever. People are trying to be helpful, and you can see the instant results too. A lot of times with bleach and so forth, and it's magnificent. It does get rid of mold, mildew, and so forth. But the problem, and I get a lot of this now too, where I'm going with this, is bleach works well on a non-porous surface. So pretty good. It's used on asphalt shingles. It's used on the siding of a home. It's used on more non-porous surfaces. Even concrete, which is a little porous, it can be effective. But if there's a heavy buildup, sometimes that needs a little extra as well. So when we look at wood, wood is a porous surface. So what happens is that organic growth, mold, mildew, whatever, algae, whatever, it can root in the wood. If it roots in the wood, and bleach only reacts with surface and whatever it comes in first contact with, does it ever really get to the root? And the answer to that question is without a doubt, no. It does not always get to it. So if you have a heavy buildup, you're going to have a problem getting to the root of it. Now fast forward, you stain or seal the wood surface, and then 3 to 6 months later, the wizard gets a picture, and I get a before picture and the picture as it is now, and what do I see? I see black mold growth running underneath the coating. And everybody thinks they did the right thing. And to them they did. The problem is they didn't get to the root. And if you don't get rid of the root, then it's going to grow back, and it grows back pretty quick when you put a coating over top of it. So you're probably, in a lot of situations, you're asking bleach to do something it just can't do. So whether you think wood, and I'll get into it a little bit later, but whether you think bleach is good for the wood or not has nothing to do with it. You're asking bleach to do something it just can't do, and it's probably not the best use in restoring wood. It's good as a cleaner. When I say cleaner, it doesn't really clean, but it does remediate the mold, mildew, and algae and so forth. So with a detergent or a soap mixed with it, it can become a good maintenance cleaner moving forward, where everything is close to the surface. The growth is on top of the sealer. If you see my other episode, for one of the first 2 episodes, we talked about maintenance cleaning. And when you go back to do maintenance cleaning, you're just cleaning the surface and then you're replenishing. So if you're just cleaning surface stuff and you did a good job with the sealer and the stain, you're just going to get rid of the surface growth and then recoat. In that situation, bleach is okay mixed with a detergent, and usually 4 parts water, 1 part household bleach, and then a cup of detergent was recommended by the Forest Products Lab. Still could be used that way. Again, it's just used as a maintenance cleaner, not as a regular cleaner or restorer. It's just doesn't have the ability for restoration. Now, let's talk about whether or not it is even good for the wood. Now, that's a real interesting topic, but what it comes down to is a lot of people will just say, well, it's bad for the wood because, and when they're asked, whatever, it's been passed on and passed on and passed on, but there's no meat on the bones. So why would someone say that bleach is bad for the wood? Does it dry the wood out? Yeah, it does. Does it discolor it? Yeah, it can, especially if it's misused. So bleach does a lot of the damage in wood restoration because it's the most used chemical out there. So it's the most misused. If bleach is misused, sodium hypochlorite is misused, you're going to have issues. So when we get really into it, chlorine was used in paper making, and chlorine would break down the lignin in the wood. Now this is getting deep, but lignin is the glue-like substance that holds the wood together, and the lignin, we need to get rid of that for the pulp to make paper, so it's used in paper making. So chlorine was used to break down the lignin. Now, sodium hypochlorite is not chlorine, there's chlorine in it. So it's not like you're using straight chlorine or anything like that. You're using sodium hypochlorite. So used responsibly, it can be effective. Now, there are other things that are also used in paper making, like hydrogen peroxide. And everybody thinks hydrogen peroxide is environmentally friendly, greatest thing in the world, blah, blah, blah. It's expensive, but it's also used in paper making. But nobody talks about that being bad for wood. But everybody's focused on sodium hypochlorite and bleach. So the point is, there's a lot of direction by people online steering you away from bleach for whatever reasons. It could be because they're trying to sell a certain product. It could be just because they're just passing information on that's been passed on and passed on, which I do see a lot of that. That's most of it. But there's no meat on the bones. Why is it bad for the wood? It's not if it's used correctly. If it's used or misused, then it can be harmful. And usually that becomes it's made too strong. People are substituting the commercial bleach for the household bleach and using the same dilution rate. A lot of people overreact and say, hey, this isn't coming off, this isn't looking good, let me hit it again, let me make it stronger, instead of trusting the process. One of the things that I often recommend with any product or chemical that's used is rely on dwell time and not on strength so much. I mean, strength, you have to have the right strength, the right dilution rate, but you could give it a longer dwell time, let it sit for another 10 or 15 minutes, say, and all of a sudden it's coming off easy, everything's looking great. But when you force it and use the pressure, that's where you have a problem, or you're trying to rush it and you didn't give it a chance to work. Everything's going to need a little bit of time to work, whether it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whether you're using a cleaner, restorer, stripper, brightener, whatever it is. So rely more on dwell time and not strength of the mixture or the chemical. So is bleach bad for wood? It can be if it's misused. Are there better products than bleach to use? Sure there are. I mentioned hydrogen peroxide is an alternative. I also didn't mention sodium percarbonate or oxygenated bleach. A lot of people refer to OxyClean, they know that. It's a non-chlorinated bleach. It's very effective. It actually gets more to the root of the growth than sodium hypochlorite will, and there are alternatives to using products for cleaning. Then there are other ways you could use it also. There are sodium metasilicate products, and most people haven't heard of sodium metasilicate in wood restoration, though it's been around a long time. It was actually used in the first composite deck cleaners. It has lifting ability. It's been used in other products as well for wood restoration, or in the wood or decking industry as well for many, many years. But look at sodium metasilicate products as usually a strong cleaner or a light stripper, because it does have a little bit of stripping ability. Or you could even take sodium hydroxide type products, which are used usually for stripping, and you could use those as a cleaner, but you have to change the dilution. So if you buy it and it says, say it's a concentrate, and you add a gallon to a gallon, you would add 2 gallons of water to the gallon of product to use it as a cleaner. So you're diluting it down, and it becomes an effective cleaner with the lifting ability for those tough situations where you have a lot of heavy buildup. You have maybe even a little bit of stain left over, but it's mostly growth. That's another situation where people try to use bleach saying, well, there's a little bit of stain, it'll probably come off, and then it doesn't. And then you've got this 10 or 20% of stain still left on the wood, and you're like, how am I going to get this off? And then you're going to have to go back to one of these other products again, like I just mentioned, whether it's a wood stripper or not, and to get that. And then if you have to do that a couple times, then obviously you're going to affect the color, tone, the natural look of the wood. The biggest thing we want to do, whether we're using bleach or any product, is to maintain the color and the appearance of the wood, because the better the wood looks, as I've alluded to before, the better the prep, the better the end result. If the wood looks brighter, looks great, it isn't inconsistent and so forth, it's going to pop and it's going to look great when you put that sealer on there. And that's what we're trying to get to at the end of the day. I know that bleach is used most often because of cost and price, but again, for the little bit extra money you're going to spend on a better product, you're going to get a better result. You'll get done faster. You'll use less pressure because it'll be easier to rinse with. When you use these cleaners, you're going to you have to cover almost every inch. They just don't have the ability, that lifting ability that some of the other products have. So usually what happens is we have penetrants and we have surfactants. When we start talking about those better cleaners and strippers, they have surfactants that help lift things up off the surface and make it real easy to rinse off. When we use penetrants, they go in, but they don't have that lifting ability. Bleach does that. So that's why we have issues sometimes with bleach. Now, if you're going to use bleach and we put a little soap in it or detergent, then that gives it a little cling and that lifting ability, so it keeps it closer to the surface, which is another item that we want to talk about when we talk about using bleach. Bleach just used in a pump sprayer or however you're applying it and just applied to the surface will just go into the wood. And when I say into the wood, it won't go in enough to get to the root, but it'll go into the wood but not stay close to the surface. So what happens is if we put the soap on in it with bleach, soap doesn't necessarily go with bleach mixed well, but temporarily it will, or for a short time. So that'll suspend the bleach, give it the cling, and work closer to the surface, giving you a better result. So if you're going to use bleach, you probably want to put some soap into it if you're using a mixture that you're making up your own. A lot of the commercial deck cleaners that you'll find in a store, those type of products usually have something else in them that you don't have to add any soap to it or anything. So rounding this all back around, is bleach good for wood? It's not the best. Can bleach be used in wood restoration? Yes. Is it good at restoring wood? No. Is it good at maintenance cleanings? Sure. Cleaning off the surface. Is the reason people use bleach and say it's bad for wood, is it because it really is bad for wood? Well, it can be if it's misused. But it can be used as a tool in our arsenal. Like I said, it depends on what we're doing. If you're asking it to restore wood or get rid of heavy growth, you're asking to do something it can't do in most cases. If it's just a light cleaning, a maintenance clean, you're asking it to do something that it can do. So that's really what it comes down to with bleach. Now, also we talk about bleach and the damage of wood, but it's funny how people don't talk about some of the other things that we use. And like I said, we use wood strippers. Most of those are sodium hydroxide. I have sodium hydroxide in them. A good stripper has more than sodium hydroxide in it today to address the different types of coatings. However, that's another episode. Sodium hydroxide can lift the grain of the wood, and it can cause fuzzing and issues with wood as well. But nobody talks about that. We're talking about how bad bleach is. And bleach has this stigma in exterior wood restoration that it's like the devil's potion or something. Again, it's misused and it causes a lot of damage, but so does a pressure washer. People use the pressure from a pressure washer, and that's not what it's for. A pressure washer should be used as a light rinsing tool. Dialed down, under 1,000 PSI, 600 PSI, whatever it is, to get the job done. And when I say 600 PSI, I don't mean you dial it down to 600 PSI. What you want to do is keep your 4 gallons a minute, your 5 gallons a minute, your 3 gallons a minute, whatever your machine is, full bore, and you put on a larger orifice tip with a bigger hole that brings down the pressure. There's other ways to reduce the pressure, but you don't want the pressure to do the work. So those people that rely on pressure and aren't using anything, they're really, it's the wrong way, just the bottom line. You can look at all the videos you want. You can look at, I've seen things myself, even on TV, where they're selling a pressure washer and they just go over the wood and they say, oh, look what it does. It's just pressure ripping into the wood. That's more, to me, that's vandalism. That's damage. That's not restoration. So we have pressure washer. We have stronger chemicals. We have other products that are out there that cause issues. We also do media blasting to restore wood. That changes the texture of the wood, and it has to be buffed, Osborne brush, something else out. So there's a lot of things in wood restoration that can cause issues, cause damage, cause you to have to sand or do some other work as well. So when we say bleach is so bad, I think we stretch it a little bit about how bad it is. I will just say, I think there's better products to use than bleach to restore wood. But as far as cleaning and maintenance cleaning, that's your answer, as far as I'm concerned. Hopefully that puts a little bit more meat on the bones. One thing I didn't mention is if you are going to use bleach or any product, any chemicals, one of the keys in the standard of wood restoration is rinse, rinse, and rinse again. So when you're completely done, and you think you've got it, rinse, rinse, and rinse again. Make sure you don't leave any kind of product or chemical in the wood, because that will dry it out, and that's not good for the wood. So definitely rinse, rinse, rinse. And if you do that, I think you'll see that you have some great results. And again, hopefully this puts some more meat on the bones. Hopefully you understand a little bit more about bleach, and not just read blanket statement that says do use bleach, don't use bleach, etc., etc. All right, I'm Everett Abrams, the Wizard of Wood. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode on bleach and you've learned a little bit more. Stay tuned for the next episodes coming up, and thank you for watching this one. Hey, I'm Everett Abrams, the Wizard of Wood, and thank you for watching the podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with me, either follow my link tree or catch me toll free at 866-440-3325. Again, thank you for watching, and see you in the next episode.